Chenyu Vale might just be peak Genshin for me. With Lantern Rite just around the corner, I found myself thinking back to previous festivals and how much of a highlight this time of year can be. When people reminisce about their favorite memories of the game, usually the finale of an Archon Quest sticks out the most, or maybe one of the summer events, Golden Apple Archipelago, Nahida's Sacrifice, Furina's Revelation. There are a lot of fantastic moments. And yet, for me, there was just something special about version 4.4. Let's dive back through memory lane and see if we can pinpoint what brought it to the top of my list. At the time, I was honestly kinda ready for some filler patches after the rollercoaster ride of Fontaine. The Archon Quest had somehow managed to outdo Sumeru for me despite some rough patches. Exploration finally felt fresh and exciting after the endless desert had worn me down. The characters were sweeping me off my feet left, right and center. And then, even after the main story was over, Hoyo dropped one of my favorite events of all time just a single patch later in the form of roses and muskets. In the lead up to 4.4, I was kind of expecting to just chill and not get too excited. I wasn't all that hyped for the new characters, I wasn't particularly interested in another expansion to Liyue, and I didn't even have much energy to get excited for Lantern Rite itself. I could not have been more wrong. The big thing this patch brought us was the new area, Chenyu Vale itself. This location was hinted at for a long time in much of the lore and in many character stories, and people had been anticipating its release for years. I had never been all that excited by that idea though. The area had caught my imagination through the histories of characters like Baizhu and Chanshang, or Guizong and Streetward Rambler, but that was because of how mystical it seemed. The legendary realm of the Adepti, nestled in misty mountains just beyond our reach. The idea of a place can be much more compelling than the reality, and I was reluctant to see those gorgeous landscapes hinted at in the mesmerizing cinematics replaced by a reality which surely could not live up to the expectations. Instead, Hoyo absolutely outdid themselves. It's like two of my favorite regions had a baby, all the strength of both Liyue and Fontaine brought together into a slice of pure perfection. Aesthetically, I've always loved Liyue's striking mountains and gorgeous autumnal tones, and its sense of mystery and grandeur. And Fontaine felt like stepping into a Ghibli film, all alpine landscapes, pastel colors and picturesque villages nestled into valleys. Chenyu Vale somehow manages to echo both at once. The locations are just stunning, the villages feel particularly well laid out and natural, and everything just feels alive. The region has so many of the most beautiful vistas in the game packed into a deceptively small area. It quickly became my favorite region in the game, and to this day it stands out above all the rest. And the same goes for the mechanical aspects of the world design. I have fond memories of exploring Liyue, but as one of the two nations available at the game's launch, its exploration mechanics really suffer in comparison to later regions. Fontaine was pretty great on that count, with 4 further years of experimentation and feedback leading to a much more polished experience. But Chenyu Vale is the absolute pinnacle for me. For example, take the zipline mechanics. Hoyo have been trying different iterations on this idea for years. Every region has a slightly different take, each with their own quirks and annoyances. The spirit carps in Chenyu Vale are so much better than all the alternatives. They're the most convenient to activate, the most flexible to direct, and the most satisfying to use by far. Natlan's Yonkasaz felt like a huge step backwards on this point. It was also absolute peak design when it came to guiding the player to points of interest. When climbing mountains, I still like the slightly greater challenge Genshin provides compared to certain other games, since it makes it actually feel like you're climbing a mountain. Rather than removing that friction completely, Chenyu Vale provides the perfect foil. They place teleporters on the peaks, plus timed traversal challenges starting at the foot of each mountain, which naturally lead the player to the top. Unlocking all of the map here was a great experience filled with entertaining challenges, which naturally led to the next point of interest almost before I had decided to point myself towards it. I usually have some minor complaints about each region in Genshin. For Chenyu Vale, I cannot think of even one. And I just have to mention the music too. Fontaine and Liyue have some of my favorite soundtracks in Genshin, and again, Hoyo pulled out all the stops. Jade Chimes, for example, has to be one of the most stunning atmospheric tracks ever written. Delving through the beautiful cave systems with this incredible haunting music in the background gives me chills every time. Magnificent. The world quests released in this version are the one part which I've kinda not paid much attention to. After Fontaine's Archon Quest, the Roses and Muskets event, and going back and finally slogging through some of the world quests in the Sumeru Desert, I'd kinda had enough. So while I've heard good things about them, I'm pretty sure I haven't even started most of them. Naturally, the quest I made sure not to skip was Lantern Rite, and I enjoyed it a ton. It centers around Garming, a new 4-star character released in this patch, and in particular, his relationship with his father. It also features Xianyun, the other new character from this patch, and since she had her own character story quest available, it makes sense that she took a backseat here. Garming was a kid with a dream which clashed with his father's expectations. He wanted to become a dancer and share his passion with the world. His father wanted him to stay safe at home and take over his family's business. Their disagreement grew until Garming left home and moved to Liyue City. Life wasn't as easy as he'd hoped. Wushu dancing was unfashionable and he had to make ends meet working as a guard. While his cheerful personality meant that he was well liked in Liyue, he remained estranged from his family. Despite his disappointment that his dreams hadn't worked out so far, he remained determined. Enter the Traveler and Xianyun. Mother Bird pulled some strings and hired Traveler and Garming to escort a merchant delivering a shipment of tea, and the merchant was none other than Yip Tak, Garming's father. Over the course of the story, Tak comes to understand more of his son's perspective, including a hilarious scene where Xianyun and Shenhe try to emphasize the joys of loving parent-child bond, which has to be one of my favorite moments in all of Genshin. The finale is a fantastic cinematic in which Garming dances in front of all of Liyue at the climax of Lantern Rite, with his father looking on. Moved by the performance and people's reaction to it, Tak finally begins to understand his son's passion. I loved every moment of this story, and their reunion at the end, with Garming finally feeling his father's love and acceptance, brought me to tears. An extra special shout out to my favorite dad joke legend Xianyun for bringing Yip Tak to life. I remember seeing some people feeling a bit disappointed that this was almost entirely focused on the personal story of a new character, and felt that it should have revealed some more interesting lore. I could not disagree more. In my opinion, time-limited stories should never reveal important lore unless it's entirely irrelevant to the main plot, which kinda rules out a lot. But on the whole, I do feel a bit torn on this story. It was cohesive, heartfelt tale, which explores traditions and emphasizes how Lantern Rite brings the people of Liyue together. Some people didn't connect with the characters and therefore didn't enjoy it as much, but that's always going to be the case with any story. However, the fact that new players will never experience it is a really massive shame. Until Hoyo adds the ability for players to optionally download and play through past events, I'll always feel like these stories which end up lost to time are a colossal waste of potential. And of course, it wouldn't be a Genshin Festival event without some mini-games. Paper Shadows was really fun, a little puzzle game where we guide Guoba and Yugui around obstacles so that they can both reach their snacks. There was also another iteration of the parkour gameplay, this time making great use of Chenyu Vale's new traversal mechanics, which made this one feel even more fun than usual for me. And the other mini-game was Utter Chaos, a co-op challenge where 4 players each control a bumper car and zoom around knocking each other flying as everyone tries to collect items to score points. All of these were fun in the moment, but a little forgettable in the long run, which is honestly a pretty great balance for them to aim for with these kinds of events. Both Garming and Xianyun came out in this patch too, and while I'll go into more detail in future character videos for each of them, suffice to say that they're both amazing. They both center around plunge attacks, so they stand out from most other characters, and quickly took place near the top of my list of favorites to play. Xianyun is a healer and a plunge buffer and enabler, and to be honest, sounded pretty underwhelming. I'm not entirely a fan of her outfit, and strongly disliked her personality in previous events where she only showed up in her bird form, so I was fully expecting to skip. Instead, I loved her character, and her gameplay was top tier. Enabling any character to use plunge attacks opens up so much potential, and she synergizes so well with Furina that many of her teams end up being amongst the strongest in the game. And despite being a 4-star main DPS, Garming is impressively strong. In the right team, he's able to hit 100k plunge attacks with ease, and has carried my ult account in the Abyss for a long time. On my main, since I pulled Xianyun, I ended up with a C6 Garming, but to this day, I still haven't enabled his constellations, so I can 100% confirm that he's fantastic at C0. I'll be enabling them one by one for comparison when I finally get around to making a review video of him. Xianyun's story quest was yet another highlight, and since this is permanent content, I'll avoid spoilers. If you haven't played this quest yet, you really should. In previous versions, whenever she showed up in her bird forming quest, Xianyun had been one of my least favorite characters due to her uppity and abrasive tone. Her use of third person made her feel very self-important, and her dismissiveness of everyone else just got on my nerves. This story let us into her inner world and instantly made me adore her. The personality we saw previously is a thin veneer over a deeply caring character, whose entire world revolves around her love for the children she raised and the desire to make sure they're happy. It was adorable to see her try to keep up her facade while everyone around her knew that she was expressing love in her own way, and the quest was just filled with touching moments. It helps that some of the characters she's closest to are among my other favorites, but she absolutely won me over in her own right. The cutscene at the end was incredibly moving and rounded off one of my all-time favorite quests in the game. I love that the Traveler's relationship with her grew and changed over time, and I wish this kind of thing was more common in Genshin. Xianyun is the mother bird we all deserve. The other content which I feel compelled to mention is the new outfits that came with this version. For one thing, we got a Xingqiu outfit inspired by Fontaine fashion, which can only be described as a vaguely accurate Furina cosplay. The other two are more memorable, however, because in the quest they were revealed to be gifts given to Ganyu and Shenhe by Xianyun herself. They're absolutely gorgeous, and the hairstyles in particular are perfection. It's perplexing to me that Hoyo don't release more outfits more often, since when they do, they're absolutely brilliant. Though it was incredibly weird that they released skins for these two characters and then neglected to put either of them on a banner until an entire year later, and even then, they're only available on the Chronicled banner rather than ones of their own. While nothing quite compares to the hype of a new major version, that combination of my favorite region in the game, a fantastic Lantern Rite quest, and two of the most unique and fun characters to play made version 4.4 really stand out for me. There are other versions which come close, of course, but this one definitely tops the list. While the finale of the Natlan Archon Quest was a major disappointment for me, and I'm skipping Mawika entirely and only pulling for Citlali on her rerun, I'm hoping that Lantern Rite will bring back the magic. This year's new UFO star looks promising. After so many Natlan characters with their more modern aesthetic, a return to the Genshin of old could not be more welcome. If she's even half as good as Garming, then I'll be ecstatic. Here's hoping that this year's story is just as moving as the last. Until next time!